I'm amazed that Brady and Belichick lasted 18 years. The Beatles lasted 8. Shaq and Kobe 8. Slash and Axl Rose, a couple albums. Like, I'm shocked it lasted 18 years.
I am too, because successful businessmen, successful athletes, successful people, they have really big egos. And sometimes so big that they can't fit in the same room.
Right.
The thing that's craziest about this is that who would have ever thought that it would have been some fitness guru that could end the Patriots dynasty? And that's really the crux of the problem here.
Well, there's two cruxes. Bob Kraft said you can't trade Brady. Mm-hmm. And the second one was Alex Guerrero became very divisive. So there's actually two guys.
Of course. So, but when I was on the Broncos, and this is why it's so shocking to me with a coach like Bill Belichick, who's, greatest coach of our time. When I was on the Broncos, Mike Shanahan was the head coach.
Yeah.
And we came in to our introductory meeting when it's all 53 players that made the team, and we go over kind of the team policies, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. And Shanahan had 3 rules. He said, I keep it pretty simple. I'm a pretty fair coach. I'm a player's coach. And he was. He said, but there are 3 things I don't want in my locker room. He said, I don't want politics. I don't want stock tips. And he said, I don't want religion. And I was sitting back and I was a little bit like, whoa. I said, man, is it going to be, is that unfair? I was a Christian. I didn't, is he not going to let? And he didn't have any problem with it. There were still guys that had Bible study. Other guys had their investment management guys that they would meet with off the field.
Right.
But if I would have brought my pastor in on a daily basis, then Shanahan would have said, you know what? You're violating our rules.
Of course.
That is what has happened. Brady, this is much more than a lifestyle. This is a religion, cult, whatever you want to call it. Brady has bought in. And I think what happened is Guerrero's coming in there and he was preaching his gospel of the TB12 message. And it got to a point where it was becoming invasive.
Yes.
And he was undermining the medical staff and the trainers that are in that room. And that becomes a very real issue. And then you offend Tom Brady. So I could see how some of these issues start cropping up. I just can't believe that Bill Belichick let it get to that point where he said, sure, go ahead. You can fly in the plane. You can come in our locker room. You can treat our players on site. Like, that is so un-Belichick. I just can't believe that it came to this.
Well, you're a parent. There's always the give them an inch, they take a mile. So yesterday, Kristine and I got into this discussion. I said, yes, on a bye week, no missing practice due to a storm. Because the minute we've seen this with athletes over and over, men in general, especially alpha males, you give them this and it becomes that. And as a parent, I see my kids, cookie at noon becomes cookie for breakfast, becomes 4 cookies for dinner. So I never open the door to it. And I think what happens is as Tom's success rises, Belichick's success rises, he's seeing the Guerrero guy, Tom's like, Coach, I'm never getting hurt. So Belichick sort of gets trapped. This probably reared its head 7 years ago. So to your point, Belichick could have said no, but it's a tough situation. What if Kobe and Shaq, after you win the second championship and you think you have 7 years later and Kobe's like, I got this guy and I haven't had an injury in 9 years, and all of a sudden the coach is like, oh, hell, he is never hurt, and he does seem to be somewhat invincible. Like, I get where the problems arise.
I think the biggest misperception in all of this is that Brady's success at this age 40 is solely due to this TB12 method. Because I think it's a sham. Because, and not to say, I think it has some valid points. Like, it's probably good to eat the way he does. He eats healthy. My wife is all over me. She wants me to get the TB12 diet. She wants all of it. So, but I think what's contributing to Brady's success, the NFL doesn't look anything like it looked 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They protect the quarterbacks more than ever. His style of play, which is brilliant because he knows where to get rid of the football. He knows how to get it out of his hands. He's never going to take those hits. And the other thing he does, which is really smart, which Peyton Manning did at the end of his career, anytime anybody comes in with a 2-yard radius of him, he hits the turf and goes down, which is brilliant. Like, he's playing at that. I would give that just as much, or not more, credit than some diet that he's, attributing this to.
Guy said a couple, and I've been a Brady supporter for years, but I said this about, I don't know, Kristine, when it was on the show, but I said this whole Guerrero thing feels too Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is great. I get what Tony does. But the old George Carlin joke, the late great comedian, used to say, if you're motivated enough to go to a Tony Robbins seminar, you don't need Tony Robbins. If you're willing to literally drive there, you're fine. It does feel a little bit of Tom Cruise Scientology. I'm going to live forever. When you stop worshiping the man upstairs and you worship the man in the mirror, it goes from religion to cult.
Absolutely.
And it feels weird to me.
It does. Now, I think where I would disagree with you is you think this implodes the Patriots this season, right? You think
I
it
don't
derails?
know. You tell me.
I don't think it does at all. If you like the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl before this latest controversy, then why would you change your mind?
Okay.
And I think this is where athletes are different than any other walk of life. Because I think athletes, professional athletes specifically, they're able to compartmentalize things, issues, disagreements, arguments, more so than any other walk of life. Like it gets, if you get in an argument with your staff or you say something and it gets weird, it might be awkward and you might notice on air. But athletes, their sanctuary is getting to the field. Let's get to practice. The other thing I think that helps is the fact that it happened Friday. It's a bye week. I think in that locker room, they will have a very clear message. We are not going to address this. They put out the statement. They tried to deny it as much as they could, even though Seth Wickersham is always spot on. He's not making any of this up. But they will not address this again, just the same way that they handled it when Guerrero was kicked out of the team locker room and off the plane. They all had the same message. They'll stay on point. I don't think it affects the team at all this year.
I have this belief. There are 3 stages for successful alpha males. The first stage is, look at me. LeBron breaks into the NBA, like 6 years. Look how great I am. And he's chasing people down and blocking it. And the first stage is, hey, everybody, I'm great. I'm going to shoot too much in basketball. I want to pass on every down in the NFL. I want to hit a home run if I'm... The second stage is you become a legend. You accumulate titles. LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, and Brady. The third stage is you're on the back 9, and it's what I call mogul stage, legacy stage. That's where it always goes wrong because you will work together. Shaq and Kobe will work together in the look at me stage and the let's accumulate titles and get wealthy together. It's when they're past their prime and they're starting to think about how am I going to be perceived. So to your point, I'm not surprised it's this petty. You were in 3 NFL locker rooms. You saw egos, did you not?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Most of the time, it was over money. That guy makes more than me. Either in your own locker room, that's when it gets to be really tricky, or if it's somebody else across the league. Those are the most contentious relationships, scenes that I've ever seen. I mean, that was famously Tiki Barber called out Michael Strahan, and he was in a contract dispute, and Tiki got crushed, and deservedly so, because that's an area you don't question is another teammate's money. You just don't go there. You would get a response of keep my name out your mouth. Like that's what you would get if you said that. The thing that's interesting in your theory on the 3 stages, I don't think Brady ever had that first stage. He's always had the chip on his shoulder, always. And the legacy stage, I think what's different for Brady, and maybe this kind of goes back to where I feel like Guerrero is such a big part of this, is that I think Brady's legacy is I want to be the oldest quarterback to play, to have success, to be an MVP, all these types of things. And I think that's what's overwhelmed him. And it's become so much. He did a piece on 60 Minutes, and it was after 3 Super Bowls. And he talked about kind of life, and it was a little bit depressing because he talked about how there's got to be more to this. And he was talking about the success and the Super Bowls. And he's like, I just feel like there's something more out there after this. And he never found it. I think that drove him crazy. And clearly, he has found that something that gives him fulfillment that he can translate into a career, a legacy, a lifestyle after football. And now that it's crept in where Belichick is saying, hold on a second, you can have your thing, just don't bring it in here. I really feel like that's the bigger, even more so than Garoppolo. It bothers me that Brady is that petty and didn't take him under his wing and was that threatened by him.
It's not like Favre helped Rodgers much.
No, but that's true. But Brady's it shouldn't surprise me. I don't know why I should be surprised by that but Brady more so than ever rides that. I was drafted late. I've never been respected. Why should I help you? He rides that chip on his shoulder more than anybody.
Finally. So this story breaks. I'm going to be Belichick and you're Brady. And they both clearly read it at home before they show up to work. And they both drive to Foxborough, one Patriot place, and they have a meeting today, right? They probably have a meeting. if you and I were meeting, Danny, you're Brady, I'm Belichick, because I am older than you and grumpier. And you're more athletic and more handsome. So would you bring it up?
Yeah, I almost feel like this is something. I'm sure there's a text chain going. I would love to be on that text chain because I'm sure Kraft, Brady, and Belichick, and I'm sure I would hope it was instigated by Kraft. He's the owner. He's the guy that kind of has to take charge in this situation. He's the billionaire. He has the most at stake because he's going to be left with the aftermath of all this. I think he probably has to say, hey, what's the plan? Maybe they have a meeting before, and he sets up this sit down. And I'm sure this one will be quick. And let's get to the point. Here's our statement. Here's what we're saying. Let's get back on point, on task.
How does Brady not take this personally? This article doesn't make Belichick look bad. It makes Belichick look reasonable and thoughtful. It makes Tom look like Scientology Tom Cruise. It makes him look a lot. A cultish.
Not only the cult part, but the pettiness. It makes him look like a bad teammate.
That's why I think it got dumped by the coach side. This article, if I'm Belichick, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm coming across as reasonable. Brady comes off as small.
He does.
Wacky.
They'll come in, but this is where they'll do it. The triumvirate there in New England, they'll have a meeting and they'll have a plan and it'll be addressed by Belichick to the team. This is all BS. Don't listen to it. This is a distraction. And they'll try to galvanize. They'll try to use it to galvanize their stretch run here through the playoffs. And I feel like the Patriots will put it behind them. But, man, it's tough for Brady's legacy.
I think
he's got to be ticked off. Like, I can imagine his reaction to reading this.
Oh, if I was Brady, listen, Brady may have won because he didn't get traded. But, boy, in this article, you know what? It not only makes Brady look bad, but does it get guys like me to call his TB12 brand cultish? Because that's his legacy.
Yeah.
It brings into question his next life, which is the TB12 method. His book is Pajamas. Today, not only is Tom getting attacked, the TB12 method's getting attacked.
Which is his
next
plan.
Yes.
That's his legacy. That's his second career. He wants to fall back on that.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.